Hi, I'm Patrick Nugent with IICLE. I'm here with my great friend Bill Anaya today, who is a partner in litigation group at Arnstein and Lehr, dealing a lot in commercial real estate, environmental law. You've been a great writer for us and a great author and a teacher for us for many years. I want to talk to you a little bit about you. What's going on in your practice? What are you doing? What's new in your writings? What's new in your teachings? What's new in your case study?
You know, that's a good, we didn't talk about what you were going to ask me, so that's a good question. Because it goes kind of to the fundamental philosophy that I have about practicing law. Years ago when I was trying to decide what I was going to be when I grow up, and I'm still kind of in that same mode.
It's a good thing to be. You stay young that way.
I'll always be thinking about what it is you're going to be when you grow up. Now that I'm in my 60s, I can tell you that the practice of law has fit me very well because it's allowed for that particular learning and relearning and nothing's new, everything's new type of review. And yeah, I've been doing this for 34 years now, 33, 34 years. And this particular year couldn't be any more exciting than the very first year back in 1980. I swear to goodness it couldn't. We've got commercial real estate due diligence standards involved with environmental law. We've got the American Society for Testing Materials, whatever. American Society for Testing Materials International, I think is the name of them. They're coming up with their 5th new standard on environmental due diligence for an all-appropriate inquiry, and we're discussing whether or not a recognized environmental condition and what does a historical REC mean, what does a conditional REC mean. We're actively involved in that. 20-some years ago, 22 years ago, I was involved in Philadelphia when the first one of these was passed, and I argued strenuously against it. I was resoundingly defeated in that discussion, and I think it's the best crow I ever ate because I think that the American Society for Testing Materials has come up with a very good protocol for analyzing commercial real estate that kind of applies and something that we can look at and talk about. It's changing. Yeah. 2013, we're going to have a new standard. Who knew? We talked a little bit earlier about Illinois just passed, and the governor is expected to sign probably tomorrow, the Illinois Hydraulic Fracturing Regulatory Act. Brand new energy source, brand new regulatory program, brand new opportunity for lawyers involved in enforcement activity and in administrative law principles, especially with regard to an administrative record, which I think is hyper critical in the practice of law. We've got the brochure for the 9th annual real estate short course in front of us right there. 10 years ago we were talking about how young lawyers aren't coming out of law school equipped with the skills to document a real estate transaction. We decided to start that course about 10 years ago, and we're still going. And we're still talking about that, and there's new things to moan about, there's new things to complain about, there's new things to kvetch about. Every year we have a meeting where folks get together and they tell me what those things are. We put some of them on the cutting room floor, we put some of them in the brochure, and that's been successful for probably 10 years plus. Occasionally we've even had to turn people away. The long and the short of it is into my 60s, I'm just as enthused, just as enamored with the practice of law because every day I learn something new. Every day somebody teaches me something.
Well, I'll tell you, and you teach people, which is so fantastic.
I just repeat what I hear.
Well, they say that the best directors always hire the best actors and steal all the best stuff. But in reality, I look back at, you and I have known each other for years, which has been an honor for me. And I look back at some of the stuff you've done, and I look back at some of your writings on the environmental law and corporate real estate. Obviously, mortgage foreclosures.
That's what I started out.
If we really look at the dynamics, it's so interesting to say every 3 or 4 years we seem to have these dynamic surges that change the industry incredibly around one way or the other. If I look at the downturn, what it did to commercial real estate in the city of Chicago, what it did to condominium law, what it did to just the way that people were not closing transactions in the state of Illinois,
Right.
and what the fiduciaries were doing. And,
Right.
and now we're getting back into, it seems as things are changing a little bit again, it seems things are getting back into more of a selling environment again. All of a sudden everyone's getting their books out and saying, how do I close that deal? I wrote the book on it, but...
How do I close that deal?
Right.
How do I do one of the things that I hear recently as I'm getting into my advanced age is I hear about how we have too many lawyers. Let me just look right straight in that camera and say to you, this is the country with the most rights. It's not an accident that we have the most lawyers and the most rights. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of people, especially in Washington, D.C., who seem to think that doing away with lawyers will streamline maybe buying and selling process. They're dead wrong.
They are.
It
Really,
will come,
truthfully...
those chickens will come back to haunt.
Yeah, I think lawyers certainly get an unheralded reputation in some instances, just in terms of the fact that in reality, when you need a lawyer and you need help, what a lawyer does for you is help you.
We're at the friction
Right.
point. Sometimes people characterize us as the friction,
Yep.
not saying that we're just there at the friction point.
Absolutely.
And without us at the friction point, I don't think things get better. They might be more efficient, but as the folks in the 40s said in Italy, Mussolini made the trains run on time.
Yeah.
He was more efficient, but he wasn't necessarily, people-oriented.
Right. I mean, inevitably, it's never going to be a perfect system, but inevitably, it's certainly a system that is probably second to none in the world in terms of the fact of how it actually brings judicial rights to the individual. Right. And without lawyers in our system, we wouldn't have that. So we're thankful to that. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Arnstein and Lehr, just because I know you're a principal partner in litigation over there, and it's such a great firm. And give us a little overview of the firm and what you've been doing with the firm since you joined.
We're 120 years now. We're in our 120th year. We practice a significant amount in Illinois, Florida. We have a large presence in Florida, and Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin primarily, where we have offices and do activities. It's a great mix. It's a business-oriented firm. Like I say, with 120 years, we're probably equally split between transactional folk and litigation folk, but most of our people I wouldn't call us general litigators or general transaction lawyers. We're pretty much business-oriented people. And again, to address the point that we made at the very beginning of our interview today, was that we're constantly learning and relearning and educating ourselves and being educated about it. I'm particularly pleased. I've been at Arnstein for 11 years now, and it's been a delightful experience. It fits my sweet spot very well, business-oriented activity. And we've got litigators, we've got transactional lawyers. I'm in a place where I learn much more than I teach.
It's nice to have you there, too, because you're right across the river.
Right
from me,
across
so
the river, yeah.
It's an easy interview when I call you up and have you come over. You know, my boss, Mike Rooney, you have been friends with Mike for years.
He likes to be my boss.
He likes to talk about transformation, that IICLE is something that is out there to help transform and to actually improve what people are doing in their lives for their clients, inevitably their community, their state, their government, their country, and for all the lawyers in the state of Illinois. And I want to say this, your volunteerism for us over all of these many years certainly is reminiscent of the fact that you have helped us transform so many people over so many years. The beauty of it is that almost everybody I talk to that is more or less a transformer like yourself also will say, I learn just as much when I go out on these things every time. It's a new practice for me every day, too.
Every
it's
day.
a new book I open every day. So the beauty is like, I guess we're all constantly in a state of transformation. We're all constantly in a state of learning. And IICLE wants to thank you, Arnstein and Lehr, and your time on our board of directors as well for everything you've done for us. And we're going to do what we can for you.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.